So 2 years since the murder of George Floyd, and there's been a lot of, or it seems like there's been a lot of progress in the issues around diversity. But is this in some ways a bit like the stuff with climate change and ESG, where there's been a lot of talk rather than actual action? So companies are wanting to be seen to be doing the right thing to attract in the investment. But are you actually seeing companies doing the right thing, actually walking the walk as well?
Great question, and I think the answer I have to give you is around context, because there are some organisations who are far more advanced when it comes to D&I and belonging than some of their competitors. So if we take our mind back in May the 26th, 2020, a number of CEOs came out with some big statements with regards to the Black Lives Matter movement and also what they want to do. And ultimately, I can say that a number of organisations have made positive first steps. So we've mentioned Sir John Parker's review. 89 of the FTSE 100 companies have ethnic minorities on the board.
And having those ethnic minorities on the board, is that something which is a boardroom level thing again for appearances, or are you seeing it actually trickle down to the organisation as a whole?
So again, yes. I think what we've seen, and I've been privy to being in meetings where new appointees on the board are actually shaping the narrative of the CEO. It's about creating a safe space, Roger. And ultimately, we've spoken about it being over-indexed, but you look at the FTSE 100, 89% of the CEOs come from a private school education, whereas only 9% of the UK population have attended private schools. Okay, so you then break it down from a diversity standpoint. How many diverse minority ethnics are going into private school education? So what we have seen is a number of the CEOs are leaning in to people on their board, because again, it's a safe environment, because the overall consensus is they want to do more. But it's about culture. It's about being in a position of not making mistakes and being penalised for it.
And the UK financial services industry is still in the early stages. You've seen these developments much earlier, you say legacy positions in some of the US financial companies.
Agreed.
And within those companies, it's this sort of feeling that the diversity actually increases opportunity. It's not knocking people out of potential jobs. It's actually that diversity increases the overall ability, the overall bottom line of some of these companies, because diversity is opportunity of trading, opportunity of revenue, opportunity of income.
Absolutely.
And so is that driving force? We're actually seeing that there is an understanding within these companies that this is actually going to help the bottom line. It's a commercial interest as well as anything else.
Well, if you look at emerging markets, so when you look at it from an investment banking standpoint, you look at it from a trading or distribution standpoint in the UK, that is where we see black coverage bankers in emerging markets or sub-Sahara, because there's a business need. So I don't think it's been a case of organisations understanding or a lack of understanding about the commerciality, but I think the next stage, Roger, is around education, explaining to white middle managers that this is going to provide upside and opportunities for them and their respective careers to grow. We've discussed about black being over-indexed over the last 2 years. I'm a real proponent of making sure that black, other ethnic minority groups are supported, like gender, but they have to be identified as different groups because they have different needs. But what's really important is around the cultural evolution of organisations and making sure that each underrepresented group and the majority are catered for in terms of progression, belonging. Because what we don't want to have is diversity fatigue, where the majority is sat there and think, gosh, I'm over this already. So it's the fiduciary responsibilities of the board to change the culture, to educate, to support, and provide the resources available for the majority to feel part of that journey and feel a real sense of belonging.
And within banking, sales, trading, and the asset management industry, we've seen that in the support roles there's often a higher diversification, but isn't there quite a shockingly low number of people who are actually things like fund managers in the UK? And so in some ways there's still these tiers that need to be broken down and mix up a little bit more.
Absolutely, and for those who don't necessarily know this stats, those who run money for us, portfolio managers, in the United Kingdom there are thousands of portfolio managers, 5, 6, 8,000 portfolio managers. And we've only been able to identify 14 black professionals running money. And it's a horrendous stat, an embarrassing stat, and one that the UK financial services have actually owned, recognised, and want to do something about it. So again, it's about holding people accountable with regards to data. Because I've got no doubt, once we started to announce and educate that to some of the largest asset managers in the world, they were mobilised, they were activated. So I think from that standpoint, it's around communication, and a number of organisations have developed programmes such as 10,000 Black Interns, which they've incorporated into their D&I strategy from a recruitment standpoint, but also looking at different industry verticals. So there's an organisation that we worked with where we actually hired in traders into their from the sell side into asset management to help on the investment side. So organisations are looking to think outside the box.
And then going forward, you know, the progress is starting to be made. The recognition is perhaps the sort of the first stage, and starting to put in place some of those changes. But to build momentum, so this is something which, you know, we've seen starting today. It's, you know, there's the benefits of diversity, there's the commercial aspects of it, but actually building momentum so that in 10 years' time, it's actually, that momentum is built. It's not just sort of started, oh, we ticked a few boxes and then it ended. What do you see as that progression from here?
Roger, I don't want to be in this seat 10 years' time. I do not want there to be chief diversity officers in 10 years' time. It's got to be around cultural evolution, where we talk about acceptance, we talk about belonging, and ultimately talk about diversification. So the next 10 years are really about action points, because there's going to be fundamental leaders in this space. We have seen a number of tech firms, organizations who have pushed back to banks and asset managers and said, if you do not have representation on your teams, we're not going to give you our business. That's where, and that's going to make the fundamental difference over the next 10 years. Organizations are starting to hold their counterparties accountable. And
do you think that this is something which, you know, we talked about this being potentially a global movement. This is something we're seeing here in the City of London, but is this culture, this acceptance of diversity, is it something that you're seeing spreading out globally?
Well, look, first and foremost, I think the UK economy, outside of the M25, the UK economy, the SMEs are doing an exceptional job of having diverse talent. Our cousins across the pond in terms of the US, in my opinion, are more advanced in terms of financial services in the major hubs, but are slightly underweight when it comes to other vertical sectors like technology, VC. But the fact that we have an opportunity within financial services to change the dial and really be a beacon to other industries, I absolutely believe is there. And I absolutely believe there's upside over the next 10 to 15 years.
And if you've got any questions about this episode, the economy or financial markets, please put them in the comments section or send them to fmt@lseg.com.